Greetings, dear viewers. Today I'm going to be talking about Marvel Phase 1 and my opinion of all the movies in that phase, from the original Iron Man to the First Avengers movie. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has had its ups and downs, though lately the movies have been more hit than miss, as they do their best to push out as much content as possible, as is the Disney way. And because of that, the CGI, stories, and everything have suffered drastically. Now, that being said, I basically stopped watching after Endgame. I tried to watch the shows, but after WandaVision, I lost interest. After Endgame, the only movies that I have watched were Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man No Way Home. One was a great movie. The other one was not. I'll let you figure out which was which. So with that said, here are my thoughts on the entirety of Phase 1, starting at the beginning. Iron Man. The start of it all. This movie is simply amazing. The first time I watched it back in 2008, I didn't know a single thing about Iron Man. I didn't even know he was a comic book character, if you believe it or not. I bought it out of pure interest, and I'm so glad that I did. Robert Downey Jr. will always be Tony Stark to me. His struggles through the movie hit me in the feelings. The fact that he goes from a very selfish, self-absorbed playboy to a man trying to make right what his company has done wrong is truly impressive. Watching this, I'm amazed at how seamless the CGI is. This movie was 15 years ago, and yet the poor animators at Marvel have been stretched so extremely thin by all the different projects that their CGI has suffered and doesn't even look as good as it did back then. This movie was very grounded and realistic. Once upon a time, that's what they were going for. The entire Phase 1 of the cinematic universe was much more grounded. The characters had depth, something that's definitely missing nowadays. Watching these older movies and then going into the modern era is just shocking at how different the dialogue and humor is. This movie ends with the same iconic line that ends Iron Man's time in the MCU. He is definitely my favorite of the original Avengers and probably my favorite overall Avenger. The Incredible Hulk. This movie, the one that everyone at Marvel wishes that people would forget. The only actor from this movie that was brought forward into the MCU proper, and no, I don't count She-Hulk, so no, Abomination never actually shows back up. William Hurt did an okay job as the foil to the Hulk, and he was what connected this movie to the entire rest of the universe. Eric Norton as Bruce Banner is passable. Honestly, the Hulk's casting is by far the weakest in this universe. Like I said earlier, RDJ is always going to be my Iron Man. They could cast almost anybody to play the Hulk, and besides continuity, nothing would really change. This movie was about as grounded as you could get when featuring a large green rage monster. Was it good? Not really. And apparently that told Marvel that Hulk was a good supporting character, but he never needed to have his own movies. And there needed to be a movie where he learned to work with the Hulk. Instead, it just happens between movies and you're supposed to accept it. Things like that earn my ire. That's not the fault of this movie, but The Incredible Hulk is a hard pass whenever I'm watching the earlier movies. Definitely not one you need to care about. Iron Man 2. Before Thor or Captain America got one of their own movies, we got a Black Widow movie featuring Iron Man. Now, obviously, that's not the least bit true, but honestly, that is what we should have gotten. Instead, we got a second Iron Man movie featuring Scarlett Johansson as the Black Widow. This movie wasn't very good, and I'm actually surprised that even with it being the dud that it was, that Iron Man still reigns supreme. Mickey Rourke as Whiplash was meh. Not saying he did a bad job, but almost anyone else could have thrown on a thick accent and want my bird, and played the same role. The replacement of Terrence Howard by Don Cheadle got a few people annoyed, but honestly, Terrence Howard, from what I understand, wanted to be paid more than Robert Downey Jr., the title character. When negotiations fell through, Don Cheadle stepped in to do it better. This movie replaces the alcoholism that Tony suffered in the comics with palladium poisoning. It's an interesting arc and probably the best part of the movie. Once again, Robert Downey Jr. delivers a powerful performance better than the movie that he's in, proving why he's one of the greats. Thor. Okay, so the first time that I watched the Thor movie, I was taken back by the humor, the Dutch tilts, and the overall Shakespearean vibe of it. Then I found out who the director was. If you don't know Kenneth Branagh from behind the camera, you have probably seen him in something, whether that be Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, Murder on the Orient Express, or perhaps even Hamlet. This man is known for his work with Shakespeare's plays, so I found it fitting that what he told was very much in line with what he knew. Now, why was the camera frequently tilted at an angle? Come on, Ken, let me know. Because I have no idea, but overall, this story worked. The problem lies in watching this movie and then jumping into the third or fourth Thor movies. The transition is so jarring. The juxtaposition of these two movies is actually hilarious, and not in a good way. In Thor, Chris Hemsworth does a great job as portraying him as an arrogant young god who desires the throne and also battle. By the time you reach Thor Love and Thunder, he's become a pale shade compared to who he was in the first movie. By comparison, original Thor was intelligent, tough, a bit brash and arrogant, but he got over that by the end of the movie. By Thor 4, he's nothing but a joke, and he's not a funny one. This is why I feel the first phase is probably one of the best, if only for the fact that they weren't trying to make a joke every single minute. Captain America, the First Avenger. Who can deny a World War II film with superheroes? I'll be honest, I didn't even know Captain America was a comic book character prior to this movie. I remember watching Armageddon and Steve Buscemi said,
Captain America here blew the landing by 26 miles.
And I honestly thought that it was just an expression like Soldier Boy. Turns out, nope. It starts with little Steve Rogers trying to get into the army to do his duty for his country, and getting selected for a special program when the scientist decides that he is able. This turns him into a big, broad man. Naturally, they put him into a costume and parade him around on stage to sell stocks. When he finds out that his friend's been kidnapped, he decides to take action himself. This leads to Hydra learning of him. Red Skull's a basic character. He's a Nazi. He's bad. That's about it. The movie ends with Steve Rogers waking up in present day and Nick Fury trying to recruit him. And with that, our roster is full. The Avengers. This movie was huge. Nowadays, everyone is trying to get into a connected universe. In reality, this was mind-blowing. The first time in many, many years, this is when they took characters from different movies and built a universe around them. The last time this was tried was back in like the 30s and 40s, and with Abbott and Costello, they had this whole line where they met all the creepy ghoulies, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, played by their original actors as well. It was very fascinating. And for the most part, they kept the actors the same throughout this entire franchise. The movie starts out with Loki showing up to offer Nick Fury a good time. When Fury refuses, he decides to take Hawkeye as his butt buddy instead. This prompts Nick to gather a team of special people to help fight this threat. First, you are introduced to Black Widow, then Iron Man and Hulk, who is looking new in Iron Man 2. They explain it away, sort of. In this, they straight up ignore the fact that it's a different actor. Mark Ruffalo did okay in the beginning, but as they gave him more and more to work with, to me he became less interesting and more annoying. With this team together, they had to learn to work together to take out this planet-ending threat. I remember buying this movie the day it came out. At the time I was a truck driver, on the road constantly, and I didn't have access to the internet all the time. So I didn't even know that it was in theaters or on film until I walked into a truck stop and bought it. I then proceeded to watch the movie 2 times in a row, and it was as good watching it the first time as it was the second, as it is now. Watching this movie over again makes me sad because it shows me just how far we've come from the originals. Sure, there was humor in the Avengers, and plenty, but it was all subtle and didn't throw it in your face. However, nowadays, if there's a serious moment, expect it to be undercut by a joke that probably isn't funny. Avengers was the first time most people had seen an ensemble cast, and to me, it was the most amazing thing. However, now that it has become too much of a good thing and has ruined it. Now if there's an interconnected universe, I generally just sigh and get annoyed because every once in a while, all I want is just a simple, good, standalone movie, and that's not what we seem to get very much anymore. So, that's what I think about Phase 1 and the Marvel franchise. What do you think? Which was your favorite movie? Which was your favorite superhero? Were there any that you didn't like? Let me know in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time in the Twisted Nightmare Studio.